Hey guys, I'm here in my strawberry pants on the casual couch. Today we are multitasking. I have got a pizza in the oven, there are ferrets loose in the room, there goes one now, and I really need to film something because I am like running out of footage. I'm running out of content, so I better film something. So I thought, I had so much fun doing the men writing women, so I was like, maybe there are other things like that on Reddit. Maybe there's like other bad writing. And I didn't really find anything, unfortunately. I was hoping that there'd be something that was just more blanket, like bad writing, like snippets or something. I don't really want to do, like, some people go on Wattpad and they read bad stories, and I'm not really interested in that. I feel like that would be a little shady for me to do. I try never to kick down if I can help it. So I'm just looking around on the internet and I found top 19 pieces of terrible writing advice. So I figured, well, let's look at them. Avi is just spilling the dog's water. Why, Avi? Why are you like this? Hopefully this will be an entertaining video. This is on Squibbler. No idea. It was just the first thing that came up in my Google search. So we're going to look through all of this terrible writing advice. Some of it is familiar, some of it less familiar, some of it I might even kind of agree with. So let's just go on through. Also, my laptop is right here. That's what I'm looking at. So, the first one is a classic. This one we all have heard, only write what you know. Except that doesn't work because the world has lots of things in it that we have never experienced, and as writers, we probably have to write about those things. I mean, 8 bazillion people write about horses and they don't know shit about them, so I think it works out. Now, if you are writing a nonfiction, you especially want to do your research, but the key word here is research. The advice shouldn't be only write what you know, it should be write what you research. Hashtag that and make it a thing. Nobody's gonna make that a thing.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
The next one is don't use adverbs. I think I have a whole fucking video about this I made a while back, and I'll link it. And I'm not going to go into too much depth about it, but if there's ever any piece of writing advice that says never use this or never use that, ignore the fuck out of it. What it means to say is use these things in moderation, because everything should be used in moderation. Anything can be overdone. So too many adverbs, not a good look. Just, you have to get a feel with practice for what is a good level of adverbs for your work. And of course, your beta readers and critique partners and such can help you figure that out. But we can't just eliminate adverbs. Adverbs are useful words. Here's one that I kind of agree with, and you guys are gonna be like, what are you talking about, Julian? Great work always takes a lot of time. And I think what it means is that, like, you're supposed to be able to dedicate a lot of time to your book. Like, you know, you're supposed to, like, quit your day job and just do your book all the time, but it also can kind of mean that everything takes a long time. Writing a book takes a long time. Getting it published takes a long time. Yeah, I agree with that. It does take a long time, probably longer than you think. Now, of course, there are people out there, and I have seen some of their YouTube videos, and I've been like, how? That they can just like write a book in like a month and edit it in another month and then self-publish it and be good. And I'm like, how? How does that work for you? I don't know. But you should know going into this whole writing thing that for the majority of us, yes, great work does take a lot of time, and we have to usually have that time around our real lives. Like, I have a full-time job, and I'm in theater, and I love spending time with my husband and my horses, so like, you have to work around stuff, and that's why my books take even longer than they would if I wasn't doing those things. Great work takes time. I actually agree with that piece of advice. Come at me. You want to fight? Fight me. I have ferrets. They will steal your possessions. Here's another one that I kind of agree with. Don't use a long word when a short word will do. Kind of agree in that when you are a novice, there is a huge temptation to make long sentences, long words, make everything fancy, and I think we need to learn, including myself, to rein it in a little bit, bring it on back. But as with anything, blanket advice does not work. So I can't say never use a long word when a short one will do, because sometimes that long word is the perfect word. I do advise, however, that we do craft our books a bit and really try to decide where length is good versus where we need to be succinct and direct. This one's just silly. I've never heard this. Don't use a semicolon. What's wrong with semicolons? They're a perfectly functional piece of punctuation. What is wrong with semicolons? This one doesn't make any sense. Write how you talk. This one I could maybe see for very specific circumstances where you are writing a book from a first-person point of view and the character is very voicey and that voice is also yours. That's the only time I can see it. I will say that when you're writing dialogue, you should definitely think about how each of the characters speak, because they should not sound the same as each other and they should not sound the same as you, the author writing the book. But writing how you talk, how would that even work? This one I heartily disagree with, and it drives me bonkers. This piece of advice says, don't use tools or technology. This is the piece of advice that says that you should just sit there at your old-fashioned typewriter and write a book. This is the piece that says you can't write a book unless you're writing it out longhand. It's cheating to use word programs. I mean, bullshit. Like, write however works for you. I could not get anything done if I had to write it all longhand. But there's this sort of image in our heads of authors sitting down at their typewriter and like that's the purest form, the best way to do it. And that's just wrong. I have a pizza now. I had to get up and get my pizza and I bumped the camera, so that's what happened. Let's go on. We're gonna eat, we're gonna talk. Told you I was multitasking. This one I've never really heard, but I can see where it's coming from. The bad piece of writing advice is quantity brings quality. And I think it's coming from a place of, like, perhaps writing for school, where you have to write so many words. And in fiction writing especially, quantity does not always bring quality. You definitely want to be aware. I tend to be an overwriter, so my stuff is always too long. But you want to be aware of like how long your stuff is getting. If you're an underwriter, this isn't such a problem, but just because it's long doesn't mean it's good. There's also this sort of notion, especially like say in fantasy, where like the big books, the big tomes are like the good books, and the smaller ones, like you have a fantasy novella and people might like poo-poo it because, you know, oh, it's fantasy, it's supposed to be huge. But no, it can be just as good. I've never heard this one either. Avoid suspense and provide understanding. So, like what? Like treat your reader like they're stupid? It mentions here, obviously, that many types of books rely on suspense, like mystery, thriller, horror. But, like, suspense is your friend in so many ways. Like, if you can engage your reader and get them wondering, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next, like on a visceral level, that is so good. You want that. So, figuring out suspense is like key to this whole thing. So I don't know who would give the advice of avoid suspense and provide understanding. I mean, you want to write something that's clear, and you don't want to confuse your reader, but like suspense is good. This one I have heard, and some people staunchly defend this one. Avoid giving character descriptions. I have seen some people who really, really strongly defend the fact that they never describe characters. I like to describe my characters. I don't go overboard. You should not have like a paragraph describing your character, but I like to give my reader a little something to go on. Granted, no matter what, your reader is going to kind of insert their own thoughts into what your character looks like, even if you completely describe them. But I am in camp describe characters. Now, if your particular style is not to describe your characters and that's working for you, you do you, because remember what we said, there are no absolutes. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, not writers. Writers are something different. We have a whole other kind of like space magic. Again, I've never heard this one. I've only heard the opposite. This one is avoid rewriting. The one I actually normally hear is that you have to rewrite. And I don't agree with either of these, again, because we're in the extremes here. If your book needs to be rewritten, fucking do that. But I also disagree with the people who say that you have to, like, you finish your first draft and then you have to rewrite it. My first drafts are together enough that I don't have to rewrite. Some people do. It's just your style, you know, it's just how you have to do. You have to figure that out for yourself. Am I somebody who needs to rewrite, or am I somebody who can just revise? Both are perfectly valid. This one speaks to me a little bit. This one is only write for pleasure. Now, I've never actually been told this one, but at the same time, I have gotten a little bit of side-eye from people when I tell them that it's important to me that I get published. When I tell them that it's important to me that I make money off of my writing. They kind of side-eye me and they're like, well, isn't the art what's supposed to be the most important? And I'm like, yeah. If I was the last person on earth, would I still be writing? Fuck yes, I would. I have to. It's part of who I am as a human person. But there's nothing wrong with me hoping to be published. There's nothing wrong with any of us wanting to make money off of the thing that we're super passionate about. And this notion that art should only be for pleasure to be pure is kind of harmful. I've never heard this one, but I got it handled. Don't have children as a writer. Done. Piece of advice dealt with. I've never heard this one. Why couldn't you have kids? If you want kids, have kids. Here's another one. Don't use complex words, very similar to the long words one. Don't overcrowd your book with complex words. But at the same time, if a complex word is what that sentence needs, then it's what it needs. Apparently this piece of advice is from Hemingway, who we probably shouldn't be taking advice from. I mean, he's fine, but he says don't use a dictionary because as authors we should just like be able to develop our own like internal dictionary. And that's stupid. If you gotta look a word up, look a word up. Like, I do it all the time. This one I've also not heard, but I can kind of understand where it's coming from. Avoid the foreign phrase. If you were writing in English or any language, I'm sure, we have many phrases that use words from other languages. Like, we say, c'est la vie, and that is not English. And you might want to avoid that in your books, maybe. Because if you are published and if that book is translated, it might not translate very well. Or it might not be super easy for non-native English speakers to understand, like, why is there suddenly this, like, second language in here? But to be honest with you, I really don't think that's going to be much of a problem. I wouldn't spend much time worrying about it. This one, obviously, again, pretty untrue. I haven't really heard this one. A good writer only needs to write. So just write and you'll be fine. Just keep writing. You'll be fine. Never do any like planning or plotting. Never get feedback. Never edit. Just write. Which is fine advice if you don't care about anyone ever seeing your writing. If you just do it because it speaks to your soul, then go ahead, you big beautiful weirdo, and do whatever you want. But if you are writing for other people to read it someday, you're gonna want to do some of the other stuff. You're gonna have to do things. There are lots of things involved in writing. This one isn't advice so much as a mentality that you see, and that is you need to be amazing before you can call yourself a writer. There's a lot of discourse about when you get to call yourself a writer. In my opinion, if you put the words on the page, you are a writer. This active thing that you are doing, this writing, makes you a writer. Author could maybe be argued that you have to like have at least finished a book or something, but blah blah blah, whatever, it's just labels. But in my opinion, if you make the scritchy scratchy on the paper or the tippity tappity on the clickety clackety, as my husband would say, you are a writer. I'm sorry, it's too late for you. You're a writer now. Oops. I probably have pizza in my teeth. I apologize to everyone who's horrified by that. Hopefully most of you are just like listening to this in your pocket. That was a terrible writing advice. That was all of it. I might look for more stuff like this, just like stuff to read off the internet and talk about. I know this wasn't as fun as Men Writing Women, but if you can think of anything that you'd like to see me like look at and talk about here on this channel, do let me know. Link me to it. Whatever, I'll look at it. You guys all know I post new videos Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking. If you like what you saw here, you can see more of it. My channel is chock full of content. And if you want to support that content monetarily, you can support me over on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to content not seen here on the regular channel. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Did someone say patrons? It was me. I said patrons just now. Try to keep up. This month's patrons are Adrienne, Lennox, Amanda, Irene, Jenny, Jesper, Lisa, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, and Zaire. And thanks again to all of my amazing patrons for all their support. I especially appreciate that you're able to stick around in these interesting times.